Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for January 10th, 2024. Let me begin by reporting to you that the tractors are continuing to roll through German cities. There are estimates that yesterday there were more than 100,000 tractors that took part in demonstrations in over 100 cities. And this included 5,500 tractors in Munich. And what we're seeing is a continued outpouring of support because this is not just a farm issue. Yesterday, 4 state governments that are run by the Social Democrats, that is the party that's a coalition partner in the German government that's imposing these unpopular policies, 4 state governments called on the federal government to address what the farmers are demanding. In other words, listen to the farmers. The main demand from the farmers is that they want to secure adequate food supplies at affordable prices, which has been made impossible by the policies of the German government, including the green policy with its regulations, the loss of cheap and adequate energy with the cutoff of supplies from Russia, the war in Ukraine, and so on. Now, the farmers themselves are saying this is not a farm issue. And I think this is an important point that has to be understood. They're addressing the interests of all. It's in everybody's interest that there be abundant food, not just in the countries in the advanced sector, but worldwide. There's no reason why anyone in the world should starve to death at this point in time in world history. Addressing the interests of the general public, of the common welfare, general welfare, that's what governments are supposed to do. And the fact that people have to take to the streets to demand it shows how far we've gone from an understanding of what representative government should be. The farmers are getting support from all sectors of German society, from truckers, from bus drivers, from transport workers, from teachers, from medical professionals. Today, there's a nationwide strike of locomotive drivers, which is shutting down the entire rail system in Germany. Some commentators are even saying that we're seeing for an unprecedented development of a general strike against the government, and that this is an extremely important change in what's going on in Germany. Now, to all you skeptics out there, let me say the potential for change is here. It's not definitely going to take place, but the potential is here. And a lot of it will depend on what you do and what the average citizen decides to do. Now, the question is, what will government do? Well, Scholtz, Chancellor Scholtz in Germany from the Social Democratic Party, is playing the role of Sergeant Schultz in the fictional American television comedy of the 60s, Hogan's Heroes, who is famous for his phrase, "I see nothing, I know nothing." Yesterday, while traffic was blocked in the center of Berlin at the Brandenburg Gate, as thousands of tractors rolled through the city, Scholtz gave a press conference and did his best impression of Sergeant Schultz. He called for increasing the amount of money from Germany to Ukraine arms to 8 billion euros. And he said, this will not be enough. He called on other EU member countries to do the same, to double their contribution. All this while vehicles were in the street, driving by with signs, "Our money for our people," "Our money for agriculture and education," and signs that said, "The Scholz government must go." So this is a tectonic shift in German politics, where the people are now demanding that the parties, all of which are collapsing in the polls and which have no alternatives, no options, it's not enough to be against the Scholz government. The question is, what will the policy be? And that's what the intervention is of the LaRouche Organization with our Turn Swords into Plowshares Act, which you can find on the LaRouche Organization website. Now, while this is going on, Blinken, who does his own impression of Scholz, was in Israel yesterday. And he was silent when Israel's President Herzog denounced the filing made by the South African government before the International Court of Justice, which will be heard tomorrow on the Genocide Convention of 1948, accusing Israel of genocide in Gaza. Herzog denounced it, and Blinken stood there in his Sergeant Scholtz mode, silent, saying nothing, knowing that his government, by his policy, Biden's policy, is complicit in the genocide going on in Gaza. Now, fortunately, there are others who are not so silent and are speaking up, including in Israel itself, in opposition to Netanyahu's policy of ethnic cleansing. There was a column in Haaretz yesterday by Oda Bisharat, who quoted a leading expert on global health who said there's a risk of deaths of 500,000 people in Gaza due to disease and the destruction of the healthcare system. There are already spread of many infectious diseases. Children are starving. There's no food. There's no medicine, as decreed by the Israeli government. And so Bisharat wrote this very powerful essay in which he said the following at the end of his column, that any expression of empathy for the suffering and the dead in Gaza, quote, is regarded as tantamount to treason. So those with any moral sense have no choice but to stay silent and self-censor, unquote. He's talking about the people of Israel, but also about the people of the world. And he concludes by saying, thus Gaza will be erased, not seen, not heard. Gaza will become the land of the dead. Very powerful words from an Israeli journalist. There are other groups speaking out, and one that's worth noting is a member of Knesset, Ofer Kasif, who spoke out in favor of the filing of the South African government. And immediately there was a move to silence him, to have him impeached from the Knesset. Well, he's speaking for his own moral conscience, but also for the people who elected him. And the attempt to silence him proves exactly what the column in Haaretz said, that anyone who speaks their conscience in Israel is threatened with the idea of being a traitor. There's a Jewish approach called din rodef, in which rabbis can conclude that someone is calling for the death of Jews and therefore should be killed. There was a rabbinical order against Yitzhak Rabin for his adoption of the Oslo Accord and the handshake with Arafat. We're seeing that now against Jewish members of the Knesset who are saying that this policy must stop. So people of conscience must speak out. The German farmers are. The South African government is. And now we're seeing within Israel courageous voices being raised. This is not support of Hamas, but of justice based on a higher natural law. The question is, will you support such people of conscience? Will you lift yourself to be such a person? And in doing so, inspire others to join you. I'd encourage you to join me today, Wednesday, in my weekly dialogue with Helga Zepp-LaRouche, the founder and chairwoman of the Schiller Institute. We'll be discussing this conjuncture of the South African filing before the International Court of Justice, the movement of the German farmers, and the political crisis engulfing every government in the world, especially Western governments, who are selling out the future of their people to keep the funds rolling into the corporate cartels, the military financial complex, and so on. So the question is posed to all of us. Will we be people of conscience? So thanks for joining me today. You can join the Schiller Institute. You can subscribe to our publications. That will help you develop an informed conscience, which will give you the power to move others.